Hello, kinky YouTubers, and welcome back to All Sex Talk. Tonight, we're going to have a very important topic in our community, the myth and the reality of abuse in BDSM and our power exchange relationships. There is a lot of talk about this, and we're going to try to clarify what exactly is happening. What is a myth and what is a reality? The myth is easy. People who don't understand what we do as kinky folks, in both in the BDSM as in our relationship, they think that all this is abusive because they see people playing hard, doing flogging, doing spanking, and that tend to be within the norms of the society. That is an abusive conduct. The reality is not. This is not what BDSM and MS is all about. Everything we do in BDSM and in our relationship are consensual. That's the difference. That's what makes things completely different to what we see outside our community. Meaning that when you agree to play with somebody in a dungeon setting and had what we call a scene, a BDSM scene, you negotiate that. You talk about that. You know, the submissive want to experience some things. The dominant want to give them some experiences. And sometimes they're new, so they are learning as well. And it's a process, but it's consensual. That's the key. We cannot forget that. The BDSM, at least the way I do it, is another opportunity that I have to connect with another human being, who is what sex is all about. When you have sex with somebody, you are connecting with that person. You are expressing some love. You're expressing spiritual. You're exchanging energy, etc. BDSM is the same thing, but we do an array of things, completely different, to fulfill that connection. Some of those things can appear to be abusive because involve what we call impact play, meaning there is something coming from the dominant that hit the submissive, be with hands, like slapping, spanking, be with instruments like paddles or floggers, etc. Plus, we have a bunch of other things that we do to create these sensations and stimulations. As I said in another video, BDSM is not about causing pain. That's not. That's what it looks like, but it's not what it is. So we use BDSM to connect. So that search for connection, for exchanging energy, cannot be abusive. Now, we live in a society, worldwide, wherever you are, where the abuse is rampant. Abuse is every day out there in our homes, in our schools, among peers, against children, in churches, everything. Abuse is rampant in our society. So we cannot forget about abuse. Yes, there are abuses out there. And our community is not immune to that situation in the society where abuse is rampant, is every day. Every time I do a class in which we speak about abuse, and if I ask people who has experienced any kind of abuse in their lives, it's almost everybody raise their hands. So abuse is there. People know that it's there. People has been abused as children, physically, emotionally, sexually, couples, the vanilla couples, oh my God, you want abuse, you find them all the time. What we call domestic violence is out there. So it happens even in the vanilla couples, who is kind of interesting. That, let me see if I could address that a little bit later as well. So our kink community is not immune to that. What it means, yes, abuse happens, can happen, and does happen in our community. Uh, why it happened? How it does happen? Well, there are many reasons for that. One is ignorance. We got too many people now, especially with the internet and the movies that has come up recently, that people want to practice this, but they don't have or they don't want to educate themselves to learn how to do things. And they're dominant, they want somebody submissive to do whatever they feel that is BDSM, and don't know the rules that we normally have in our community. The old one that created my friend David Stein many years ago, safe, sane, and consensual. The new one, who is risk-aware play. Uh, so we know what we're doing, but when you don't, then you think that it's about hitting somebody, and you don't know how to do it. You don't know that there's a process to start slowly to take people into a good experience. They just hit somebody. I could tell an anecdote that many, many years ago. I was in Nevada, in Vegas, and a so-called master invited me because he was having a young man coming to play who was submissive, and he wanted to share with me, and so we both could play with him. The young man showed up, and he was right. He was a very handsome young man. And this master, as soon as this guy arrived, began to hit him without any pattern, just hit the person. And 5 minutes later, the boy was gone. And I asked him, what happened? He was not supposed to stay and play? Oh, no, that's what he wanted. Bullshit. That is the mistake that dominant made. That he thought that practicing BDSM was beating the shit of someone else as soon as you show up in your door. That is not what we do. So those things happen in our community, and we should be aware. And submissive, be aware of them. If you want to protect yourself, be male or female, ask when you're meeting somebody for the first time, you meet somebody online and want to play, ask them, what experience do you have? Do you belong to organization? Have you gone to classes? Who taught you bondage? Who taught you to spank? Who taught you to flog? So you got an idea if this person knows. And if he doesn't want to answer, back off. Okay. Then there are the predators. And these are the abusers in the community outside who find out about our community because now, contrary to 30, 40 years ago when everything we do was on the ground, now everything is out there. So these people see us online. Oh my God, these people, look at that. They're doing this, they're doing that. And they want to join with the purpose of finding a female submissive or a male submissive, whatever the situation, and they could hide their abuse tactics in the name of BDSM because nobody will detect them supposedly because they're doing BDSM. They're not abusing it. All they do is abusing. They don't know how to do it. They don't follow our principles. They don't follow our rules. So those predators that come to our community with that purpose of finding submissive people that they can abuse, not that they could play with, not that they could connect with, that they can abuse, those people need to be eradicated from the community. And us as a community has to be alert when we spot these individuals in our community. And then sometimes it happens even to good people when they practice BDSM. One thing that I have noticed more often than not is the masters or dominants that don't know that there is a line, that there are some things that we could do in the bed or in the dungeon that cannot be done outside. One example that I normally do is slapping. You know, I could get a boy and slap him in the face rhythmically, and it's a lot of fun. Okay, but it's well done. You make sure that doesn't get the ears. Is there is a technique to do that, and that is called slapping, and that is fun, and that we could do it when we are playing. What you cannot do is, because the submissive, the slave, may have done something wrong, and then you slap him in the face as a punishment. That is abuse, and that is not acceptable. The same verb, slapping, but one slapping is fun when you are playing. The other one is abuse, and it's not acceptable. And like that, there are many things that you could do in the setting of a dungeon, in the setting of play, in the setting of having sex or kinky sex, that you cannot do outside. So those are the more typical a form of abuse within the BDSM. Let me go now and talk about the abuse that could happen in relationships. Say, be master slave, power exchange, authority based, daddy boy, mommy girl, mommy boy, whatever you have relationship you have, no matter how you call it. When there is a power exchange, an authority based relationship, there are great possibilities for abuse. And there are three forms of abuse. The first one is physical, that we talked already a little bit, which is what happened in the example I was just giving. There are things that because you do BDSM, that doesn't mean you can abuse physically a person when you are not playing. And a lot of people don't see the difference, that there's some things you do consensually when you're playing that you cannot do because you get upset with the submissive. And besides, I don't believe. At the same time, I will tell you, I don't believe in physical punishment of a slave or submissive, especially with things that we do in the BDSM. That will change the beauty of BDSM. Convert that into punishment? No. There is. Let me clarify also that there is a lot of people who don't understand that BDSM is not about punishment. I got boys who come and say, "Oh, sir, I want you to punish me." They don't want me to punish them. They want me to play with them. But they relate what we do, spanking, all that stuff, to punishment. And it's not, okay? So you got to be careful. There is always a line. There are things you can do in the dungeon that you cannot do outside. So that is when physical punishment, physical abuse happen more often. The other form of abuse is emotional. And this is more difficult. The physical scars that can happen from physical abuse, they heal. The emotional scars for emotional abuse, they're more difficult to heal. So that is when the dominant put down the submissive, telling him all the time or her all the time, "You're not good, you're this, getting, especially if they have low self-esteem, they even put them even lower. So you cannot build a submissive. Your responsibility as a dominant is to build, to help the submissive to grow and to develop as a good person and as a good submissive, a good slave. And you don't achieve that if all you're doing is put that person down all the time. Okay? Submissive are not a piece of shit. Okay? That is a fantasy. Submissive are real people, good people, extremely great human beings who just crave to surrender and to serve. And we have to cherish them for that. Finally, the third part of the third abuse, form of abuse, is financial. That is when a dominant in a relationship want the paycheck of the slave. That's the more normal that we find. They want a slave, all they want is a paycheck. That's a financial abuse. And then when they let the slave go, the slave doesn't have a penny because their master has all the fun. And I have seen, in my experience, cases of amazing financial abuse. Like one master who forces a slave to mortgage the house that he inherited from his parents for over $100,000 to pay the debts of the master. He never paid back, and then release the slave. That is abuse, financial abuse, and the slave has to be empowered to recognize that, okay, and not allow that to happen. My mentor in mastery, a person I learned a lot from him, all the basics concept, had a big mantra that I never forget, and I always repeat many, many, many times, especially to the masters. And the mantra is, a slave contribute to the master household. Meaning, if you live with the master, we're not sugar daddies. You got to contribute, unless you have an arrangement to stay home and don't work, etc. And then the other part of the mantra is, masters never profit from their slave. And I tell masters, if you can live by that mantra, you will be okay. But that is another form that many people use the power exchange to suck up financially their slaves. Okay, so this is basically what I have for you today. My conclusion is, yes, abuse happens, but BDSM and master-slave relationship are not about abuse. There is no place for abuse in our relationship. The slave, the submissive, has to empower themselves to identify the abuse. And maybe we do another video in the future about this. And the master has to have the ethical responsibility of never abusing those in service to him. So that is all for today. If those who want to communicate with me, I am Master Taíno on Facebook, Master Taíno on FedLive. Subscribe to the channel. We are continue every week trying to bring a new topic. Also visit my website, mastertaino.com, and keep in touch and write to me and let me know what you like. If you have any topic that you want me to develop, I will gladly consider that. Have a good one.